Welcome, everyone. The first question I'm going to ask, and we're going to start with Randy. I don't know why I took this, but they're going to be looking for it. Is around your thoughts on the organization's real-world view of both the definition that I kind of put up there and the value derived from digital transformation or digital twin, as I described it. Can you guys give us your thoughts based on your organization?
Sure.
So, and keep it in life sciences, but it doesn't have to be.
Sure.
So I'll start with you, Randy.
Yep, Joe, thank you. And hi, everyone. Randy Subramany, Director of Supply Chain for New York Presbyterian. At a very basic level, my team is responsible for ensuring that all of the medical supplies needed for patient care are readily available, whether that's an operating room setting, an inpatient setting, or an outpatient and ambulatory setting. So to dive in a topic that's so relevant and has so much that we can cover, I don't think we have enough time, so I'll try to keep my comments as brief and concise. But in terms of real-world application of the digital twin from a urban leader hospital perspective, we view it really as an operational and resource planning tool. There's certainly elements to what Joe recited in his definition that are applicable. And from the vantage point of a hospital and our mission and our direction, the digital twin, the concept of the digital twin, which there's still a lot of work to be done in a hospital setting, at least that's my hypothesis, but I think everyone would buy into the idea of the value of real-time visibility, the importance of using this type of digital twin or ecosystem to manage inventory. But from 2020 to the present, I think there's three pillars that we really need to use the digital twin in a hospital setting to focus on. I think the first is scenario planning or scenario analysis. I think the term pandemic is one where having a digital twin and how you forecast or can use that type of resource to help cater to how much PPE is needed to stockpile. Would this meet the needs under these type of constraints? That type of risk management is certainly extremely important. But I also think from a planning perspective, hospitals right now, maybe to use a real-world example, Joe, to your point, we're in the midst of a pediatric surge where RSV rates are high, flu rates are high among our pediatric population. And to be able to plan in terms of supply needs or utilizing our digital twin to model or to run forecasts based on the supplies needed would be extremely valuable to us. So I think scenario analysis is one. I think the second, as simple as it seems, is supplier communication. It is an ecosystem. Hospitals can't function. We are, in essence, a customer on the supply chain. We can't function without having direct lines of communication. And my role is non-pharmaceutical. It's really more of the disposable and reusable side of care. But we can't properly function without having that type of direct communication with our suppliers. And the digital twin, or the concept of it, allows for hospitals to have more direct integration with real-time data, real-time location tracking. I think Joe hit on some of that in what he was discussing. But having that second pillar is extremely important for the real-world application of caring for humans. And the third pillar I want to hit on centers around, I'll term it as like resource allocation. So from a hospital perspective, when you think of resources, of course you have the people or the staffing resources, and that ranges from your medical care provider to your environmental service worker or your supply chain leader. You have space constraints or space allocations that you need to consider. In New York City, I think it's no surprise to anyone here, the space we're allocated for supplies or storage is far less than what Intermountain may have in Utah, as an example. Then there's asset management. I think there's an element of transportation and how supplies come in from whether it's a distributor or whether we're moving literally supplies from our Cornell Academic Medical Center on the Upper East Side of Manhattan to our Columbia Academic Medical Center that's in Washington Heights, 7 miles away, but it'll take 50 minutes to move a widget from A to B. So I think as we look at the digital twin and the real world applications, it's important that these three pillars are being considered. We're lagging, but I'm optimistic that, Joe, next year, when we're here, we'll see the advancements that hospitals have made, because in the end, to connect it back to what Bill was saying, it all just helps to ensure that hospitals are more profitable. Hospitals in the current state, in the current world, at least the non-for-profit ones, are operating at a 3 to 7% margin, which is slim. And we need to capitalize on these types of digital tools to certainly help move us forward to care better for our patients. So, Joe, my thoughts from the hospital perspective.
Great, thank you. Joanne, now from a medical adherence perspective, can you give us your comments on?
Absolutely. So as part of my background, we are sitting next to supply logistics, personnel and teams and experts. So we're an adherence solutions company, and I'll take it one step further when it comes to supply and management, taking it beyond at that last mile, and we go directly into patients' homes to help them with their medications. So when you talk about digital twin, in my experiences, that is, we can have exactly a replica of a physical asset of a medication bottle, as an example, or a medication blister card, and that can actually be digitized, so a patient can have it on an app where they don't necessarily have to write anything down. They just touch something, and then that becomes your real-time data point that these supply chains need in order to feed the data into the supply chain and the strategic forecasting. So when you talk about inventory levels and that sort of thing, you can have really like a bird's eye granular view using digital twin, so that the data points can reach where it needed to go quickly and basically in near or real time. But it's that type of adherence solutions, not just obviously caring that patients are adherent, which they should be, but it's also to track and manage per dose the drug management of the supply as it's going through a supply chain. So that's kind of how I see a digital twin in my world of medication, physical assets of bottles, blisters, injectables, et cetera.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've seen hospital, medical adherence, a little bit of pharma. Now we have the person that knows all of us and can give us a global view of this, and many customers, not just healthcare, correct?
I'll try, Joe.
Okay.
Can everybody hear me okay? I'm Dennis Groseclose. First, I want to thank everybody for hanging late for lunch. We'll try to be quick, and thank the group for setting it up. It's been a good morning already. So I was a founder of Transvoyant, been CEO. I'm just a little level set. I'm Gen X. I'm a little bit jaded. I don't like buzzwords, so part of what I say may actually
Get you in trouble.
irritate Joe next to me. But we are blessed to have we're up to about 70% now of our revenue is in life sciences, companies like Merck, like McKesson, Convatec, DSM in Europe. And enough about us. What are they trying to do, right? Where does the rubber hit the road on this concept of digital twin? They're trying to understand really the flow and behavior. They hear analysts talk about digital twin, and it's confusing, but if you boil it down, they want to understand the flow and behavior through the entire supply chain. And when I use supply chain, it's the big word supply chain. It includes manufacturing, it includes clinical trials, the beforehand, it includes, when it's on patent and off patent, from raw material. And in our world, which is really cool to have this panel, our world, the digital twin kind of stops at the right before the patient. So I think of McKesson and Merck, it gets all the way to the pharmacy, it gets to the doctor's office. And today, that's pretty blessed and proud to have that whole digital representation of the pharma supply chain, but we don't have that last mile, right? And I'm just intrigued by all the work that our customers are doing, and it's good work around understand the flow and behavior, and I'll get to why here. but then really not having that last piece of how is it really affecting patient outcomes? Were the right tests done on the patient before we gave them that drug so that we had the right genetic makeup for that patient, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just, but the good news is we started Transform in 2012, and it's come a long way. I mean, we couldn't even have these conversations technically, data-wise, or from a business model perspective. So yes, every one of our customers has a chart that kind of looks like Joe's chart, you know, the end to end. But we've learned that the hard way, that if they don't focus on specific business value or patient outcomes, it turns into a big science project that's run by, you know, a bunch of scientists, which I'm a geek, so I feel for that. And we've, with them, focused on specific use cases. So the McKesson, for example, wants to orchestrate better their last mile delivery. They want to pay for performance to that distribution and logistics group, and it's a large one. They want to manage the demand variability by sharing real-time behavior data with CVS, with Scott and White Hospital, right? So, you know, et cetera, thousands and thousands. So it's around reducing variability in the back half of the supply chain, of the pharma supply chain. You could call it the front half, depending on if you're an OR geek like me. And it's about customer expectation management, and it's about pay for performance. Not so much pay for performance on patient outcomes, but on the people that are in the middle. You know, think about it. There's people that invent and manufacture treatment, and there's the patients, and everybody in between, including us, are rent-seeking utilities, right? And so they're trying to, I know that's hard, but it's, if you think of the world that way, you attack the right problems. Merck, you know, I was back there going, wait, Joe, we do some predictive and some prescriptive. You know, at Merck, it's all around preventing excursions, right? Temperature excursions on all the vaccines and treatments like Keytruda, and saving doses, right? Because there's always a supply shortage, you know, in the market. We can talk about that on a break about why. And it's about understanding the flow and behavior and all that sensor data and all that internal data that Merck has and all the data from all the logistics service providers, the carriers and the 3PLs and you know, the aircraft and the trucks, and all in real time, right? And understanding it in a way that allows you to predict things, in Merck's case, get ahead of, or as an old Intel military guy would say, get left of, you know, a temperature excursion, so you can actually prevent it. And to what Bill was saying, you know, Merck and other customers have asked us to wrap the services around that. So it's our people using the digital twin to interdict, you know, with the logistics service providers to prevent an excursion. So those are two use cases. DSM, European base, they use a digital twin to really help them in near real time optimize how much do I put in this warehouse? How much do I put in this warehouse? What shipper should I use, right? And then, you know, we're working some use cases now where we're trying to characterize what's coming out of the manufacturing process, because as all y'all know, certain quality or characterization could go to certain markets, right? So now bringing the manufacturing and the supply chain logistics team together so they can get left of the decisions on packaging and left of the decisions on how to ship it based upon what's coming out of the batch, right? Those are 4 quick use cases of, you know, what is really happening in digital twin, not all the analyst hype. Hope that helps.
Okay.
Good enough?
Yes. All right. One more question, and I think then lunch. I'm going to stay with you. In terms of barriers, like if you had a perfect world, what is getting in the way here for most constituents that are either users of what you're doing, and if they could get taken out of the way, what would happen? And I'd ask you guys the same thing from your perspectives.
You know,
and it could be funding, it could be education, it could be anything. But,
Sure.
But you may know a few more.
So like every good panel, am I first or you want?
You go ahead.
Sure? Okay. Because I could go on
Do it.
for 4 hours.
We don't have.
Like every good panel, Joe shared some of his thoughts beforehand, and I had a real hard time flying up here. I don't want to sound like a downer, but there are a lot of barriers, right? They're not technology based. I'm a dork. I'm a data science kind of guy, right? I'm ML AI guy. It used to be technically infeasible. You couldn't handle all this kind of data in 2009 at this volume to understand flow and behavior around the world. I mean, that's just crazy. Today, it's not that. It is, and it sounds a little brash to say that, but it's not. Today, we're facing the real problems, right? That the business model problems between distributors and manufacturing and third-party manufacturing, right? Sharing real flow and behavior data through their manufacturing process and real quality data, and so they can characterize what supply is available to move to, the pharmacy and eventually to the patient. So there's not a lot of, I'm going to speak frankly, and I'm on the ground. I'm a solutions guy that plays the role of a CEO when I'm forced to. There's not a lot of ground, a lot of collaboration and trust, in Europe or North America between those entities. I think it's, how to solve it, it's going to take some time, right? And people are going to have to see real business and patient value, and it kind of forces them, right, as they see little nuggets of it. So pick a couple treatments and work together as a single supply chain, right? I know that sounds Pollyannish, but all those people working together between distributor, manufacturer, and OEM, third-party manufacturing. That's one. Internally at the big pharmas, we do a lot of big pharma stuff. Not to pick on Merck, but there is several, I mean, it's not just them. Everybody's got these silos where it's really difficult, for the supply chain chief C-level and the manufacturing C-level and the R&D C-level, and the customer-facing C-level. They haven't worked together a lot, and certainly the teams below them haven't. And most of these use cases, remember the one I said about manufacturing and how to package and how to ship, and those cross, several fiefdoms, several teams inside of a, so there's resistance there. And then make no mistake, and this is really incumbent on us, we manage data quality, and the quickest for, across all the ecosystem players that we're connected to, all the carriers and couriers and LSPs, and we've had in 2018-19, I overestimated the data quality, and thought, oh yeah, no problem, this will be easy. And it turns out we had to do a lot of first manual and then automated machine learning to clean up the ecosystem data. And it sounds kind of geeky to say that, but the best way to really mess up a customer delivery is having the users not trust the information, right? And then the last one, and probably the most important one, is don't boil the ocean, right? Or as a band from the 80s from this area says, don't believe the hype, right? Don't try to build a digital twin end to end without a few anchor use cases, like we spoke about, excursions or pay for performance. Without proving that you can get business and patient value, it's a big science project, and I see them all the time from my perspective. So hopefully I went fast enough.
Okay, thanks. All right, Joanne, you want to take a shot at that from the adherence perspective?
Sure. When it comes, I was recently at a clinical trial supply conference, and what they spoke of, the interactive response technology folks and the supply teams were, there's this big black hole at the point of, when you ship direct to patient or depot to patient, or in these decentralized trials, where they lose sight and they lose visibility and traction and real-time data when it gets to patients' homes. So when we can use these digital twins, and there's different levels when it comes to, in our world of adherence, when it comes to different levels of the twin, we can provide different levels of data to these automated systems. And I think it's there that's this big benefit, and to Dennis's point about siloed and communication. So there's a lot of, once it leaves a packaging facility and when it gets to the patient, there's that chain of custody right there that will strengthen the supply chains. And, with digital twin, where patients can actually engage at different levels that's suitable for the patient, because every patient is unique. I think that'll create a lot more data that is ready for actionable insights, and also to fix that black hole of, where are my products and how are the products, how is the quality of the product, the temperature, the expiry, and all of that stuff. So it is definitely a great asset to include in a supply chain as a strategic offering to ensure the safety of patients, but also to validate how these twins work and how they keep the supply chain working flawlessly almost. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Randy?
Yes. So, Joanne, I think there's maybe 3 fundamental barriers from the hospital side. I think the first centers on, and Joanne, you hit on it, you teed me up perfectly, this strategic awareness. I think prior to 2020, from a hospital standpoint, this Department of Supply Chain Management, Materials Management was always thought of as a transactional function, which we are. Bring my supplies so we can care for patients. I think, or I would strongly hypothesize that post-pandemic, slowly, very slowly, organizations are realizing the strategic value of a true supply chain department. And that slow awareness is a barrier because there's a change management element. We're talking about digital twins. We're talking about artificial intelligence. All of these resources that can help better our supply chain so we can better care for patients. But at the highest of levels, I dare to argue that the C-suite isn't exactly ready for that just yet. They will be soon, but not just yet. This is a lot of information being thrown in this world of supply chain. Getting to even think of supply chain as a strategic value and a differentiating factor is hard enough, but I think that's one barrier to change. I think the second is, and Joe, to your point, I think it's an education thing. I'll frame it as how diverse supplies are to care for patients. On a daily basis, we have hundreds of thousands of different supplies: pharmaceuticals, reusable instrumentation, portable equipment, disposable widgets or goods that are there to care for patients. And as human beings, and just coming from the lens of an academic medical center where we care for the sickest people in the world, a lot of, and maybe there isn't a need to realize this, but a lot of external parties don't realize how much stuff goes into caring for patients. So I think the education around how diverse the portfolio of supplies are to care for humans needs to be better realized to move us forward into this more digitized era. And Joe, just to bring it home, from a hospital perspective, again, with, I don't want to say shrinking, but limited margins, there's that financial barrier. Implementing these types of technologies or this type of strategic value costs. It costs a lot. And I think, and I know Joanne's going to chime in. Please, Joanne, go.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think, too, when you mention that, like the waste, right?
Yes.
When you talk about cost, it's like, if you can, put this strategic forecasting in to reduce costs of all the supplies at least, or the drug supplies, I mean, that's really a key.
Yeah, and no, Joanne, to your point, from a business case perspective, I'm sure you can string together smart individuals like ourselves to put pen to paper to say why this would make sense. But sometimes for a CFO, it's that hard decision of, do I invest X millions of dollars in building a new cancer center, or do I move us into this digital twin era? And there's no right answer to that. It's just that fundamental of where do we view supply chain management and the future state on our strategic pathway. So a lot of promise, Joe. And again, maybe I'm inviting myself and this panel back for 2024, but curious to see where these barriers are next year.
Perfect. Thank you. Any last comments? I'm conscious of lunch. I'll let you make any last comments if you'd like. Otherwise, we'll break for lunch.
I'm just appreciate y'all having us. I agree in my comments about use cases and business cases. You won't, from where I sit trying to solve the problems down in the trenches, you won't get the project, you won't get the funding unless you show the CFO, some business case and some patient outcomes. So I think couple concepts of let me digitize my whole end to end, that's, sure. But we won't even, we've learned that we shouldn't do projects that just are that. They have to have real specific use cases at different parts along that flow and behavior. And I think everybody should kind of line up with that, so I agree with you.
Okay, then I'm going to end it here. Thank you, everyone.